Welcome to another Tuesday Tip. I am with 𝗏𝗏𝗶𝗵𝗁 and 𝗤𝗏𝗁𝗁, and my name is Sarita Scherpereel. Hey guys, can you remind our guests why I'm here today?
I'll take that one. All right, so for those of you who listen to the show regularly, you know that we started the brokerage. We've had a lot of our listeners reaching out, looking to buy investment properties. And it's something that Mark and I want to continue to help on your journey. But due to the demand, we realize we need someone who is doing this at a high level already to come with a team and be a team leader and make sure that we are fulfilling the demand that we have coming in. And so we went out, we talked to Sarita last year, we continued conversations, and here she is, the team lead of the straight up Sarita Sales Brokerage, looking to help all our buyers buy their 2 to 4 units, their commercial properties, and so forth. So welcome aboard.
Thank you, guys. I'm really excited to be here and very humbled to have had the initial conversations with you when we first started, reaching out to discuss this. I think that this is a really great collaboration because we are always recommending people to listen to your podcast because it's an extension of the things that we believe. So it's a lot of, don't just take my word for it. Listen to experts that are doing this all day, every day. And you guys have really, not only have you yourselves are experts at what you do, but you always bring on the best guests and people that will offer specific market insights into different areas or different paths of investing, which is all really important and such a great extension of what we do. So this felt like a really good collaboration and a wonderful partnership, and I'm really excited to be here. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna tear up a little bit because it is like,
You're live, don't do it.
I know, I won't. I know, Lance is like, great, we gotta cut more stuff. But yeah, no, it's really humbling, and I'm very excited for what we're about to do.
That was a beautiful opening. Like that wasn't scripted or anything. Like, so like I appreciate
this is working out well here.
Yeah. So listeners, this is our first Tuesday Tip in person. So you're the first person to come on Tuesday Tip and do it live. And this is an exciting year, 2024, doing these live shows. We got the new website. We got Build Your Team 2.0. We got
sorry, sir, with the space? The space.
We got the space. We put our first event on here at over here at the 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗵𝗁 in Roselle.
Awesome.
We got a bunch of events planned for this year. So it's just an exciting year. Even though this probably won't come out till February, we're filming this here in January.
We're ready to roll. Let's do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
all right, we're still going to give you a Tuesday tip out of this. So let's talk about escalation riders.
Yeah, it's escalation season for sure. For the last couple of weeks, and honestly, it started really before the holidays, so before Christmas, we started seeing inventory. It had been low for a while, and then new properties as they started trickling on, buyers, started gauging interest, especially when the interest rates dropped or started dropping, or hints that they were going to. So over the last few weeks, it's just been nonstop escalation riders and multiple offers. It is that season.
All right. So as a buyer, what do I need to understand about an escalation rider? Why would it be advantageous for me to put one on my contract? What do I need to know? What do I need to warn the listing agent in case they are not used to this? What are some tips?
Yeah, absolutely. So first you got to understand what an escalation rider is. So an escalation rider is essentially a part of your offer that you submit that says you're willing to pay up to a certain amount at maybe a cap above competing offers that they might have. Now, most of the time in a multiple offer situation, it's hard to gauge, what the interest is of the property. You can look at comps, and you can also look at how many people were a part of your showings or your open house to really tell, is there going to be multiple offers? Do you feel comfortable submitting, an escalation rider? The con to this, and what a lot of buyers believe is a con, is that they get to see your bottom line, and then that the seller knows what your bottom line is. And the reality is if you're in an actual bidding war for a property, you're not in a negotiation situation anymore. And you have to get that out of your head. This now becomes an auction. You're bidding on the property. So it doesn't matter if they know your bottom line, if they really do have multiple offers. And again, you can gauge that interest based on what you saw in your showing and what you see in the comps and what your agent kind of guides you for it to be. So it doesn't matter if they know what your bottom line is. So for a lot of buyers out there, you have to kind of use that intel to create and curate the right offer for that situation. And you want to be competitive, especially, we sell a lot in the north side of the city. So this is the market that I speak to. But if you're in different markets where this doesn't necessarily apply, you really need to lean on not only your broker to talk about those strategies with you, but also the comps at hand.
Would there ever be a point you use the escalation clause where you're not 100% sure there's other offers, or is that something you want to make sure that there's other people bidding on it at the same time?
I think it's just a good idea to do it in spring until I'm told not to, where they're like, well, we don't, and Tom and I were talking about this before, like sometimes people will tell you like, we're not accepting escalation clauses. And so then you just go off of price. I think if you have a good understanding that there's going to be multiple offers, it's okay to just shoot your shot with it for certain inventory, right? So if we're talking about something that's dilapidated and has been on the market for 200 days, obviously don't submit an escalation rider for that. So you got to use some common sense and like read your situation a little bit to know what the best way to lead that is.
Are there points or transactions that listing agents are not wanting to accept those or not wanting to allow those?
That's a good question because there are. And, a lot of this is dictated by the seller, right? So if the seller is like, hey, I just don't want to do that and it sounds very complicated, they can take that off the table right away. If I'm on the listing side of things and I see a lot of things coming in at the same price, or I know that that's going to get a little murky and it really is going to be all about the details, meaning your financing, your closing date, how much down, all that kind of stuff, you might want to take the escalation riders off the table. So there are times when it is appropriate and there's times when it's not.
What's the difference between escalation and just asking for highest and best?
That's the highest and best is usually kind of the bottom line of what they're given, but the highest and best can also include your escalation rider. So if they're accepting them, they really want to see what you're bringing to the table in the full package. If they're not accepting escalation riders, then you don't have to submit it at that time.
Would you say highest and best is more along lines of just like getting to the bottom of this and like, like I don't want to mess around. Give me what you got, and I want okay.
Absolutely, rip that Band-Aid off. We just want to see what you have here. And a lot of times it's hard because when you win a bidding war, you always feel like, oh great, I got it, but I feel like I overpaid, and like there's that that limp in your throat. You're like, oh God, what's happening here? Sometimes it's better to be the last man standing. So shoot your shot, submit your offer, and see where it lies. I know this doesn't have a lot to do with investment properties, but I think this is just a really interesting anecdote. We were at a townhouse showing in Lakeview in like the Southport corridor over the weekend. There were 70 parties in that open house. And at some point they just lost track. When my clients arrived, there were 20 parties that went in before they were there. When I arrived, we were a part of 20. So I know that 70 is probably within range. From that, their email said they only got 9 offers. So a lot of people start weeding themselves out through this. They still use escalation riders. They also use an appraisal gap contingencies and things like that to make sure that price is going to be appropriate for this townhome. But in this market, you have to still continue to try. So even if you submit your offer and you may not be the highest one chosen, sometimes that buyer that gets that lump in their throat and feels like, oh gosh, I overpaid, they back out. They get under contract and they see like, hey, this has some problems. And when there's 70 people in here, I couldn't see the problems. Now I don't want this anymore. So it's interesting to be one of those 8 other buyers in that situation because we're the parties they come back to when the buyer gets cold feet. And if we didn't submit, we're not a part of that conversation.
I was talking to someone the other day that went through a highest and best situation. It was like 2018, and he backed out. He won it. He backed out because he had the buyer's remorse. He's like, man, I pay about 10, 15 grand too much for this. Now I asked him, I said, what's it worth now over your 10 or 15 grand? He's like, it's worth about $140,000 more than it was then. So what's your advice for buyers around, not having that type of remorse in this type of market?
Well, I think that story is a big indicator, right? Like, a lot of this, if you look at your mortgage quotes from a $10,000 range, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter for a lot of buyers. It's not enough to eat your shorts. If you're under maybe a $300,000 price threshold, yes, the numbers become a little bit more tight and severe. But a lot of the investors that are looking this are not looking at this for the short-term gains. It's long-term here. If you're buying a multi-unit that's over 120 years old and has, great plumbing and electric and drywall, hubba. If it's got drywall, like that's a huge game changer for the amount of updating is going to be needed on a property. To me, a $15,000 price difference is not going to matter because you have a more updated property that's going to last a lot longer in that situation.
Yeah, I think you bring something very valid up there where if you're trying to flip this, that 15 grand or that 10% is a lot more crucial. That's actually cutting right out of your bottom line at the end of the deal.
Yeah, if you're doing burr.
Yeah, it depends on your strategy, right? The longer you're going to hold this thing, the more you can swallow.
Because time is what?
Time is your biggest asset.
All right.
So, all right. Ready for our Chicago fact here?
I'm ready.
So today's Chicago fact comes from Ellen Herford. Ellen, thanks. I know you referred him to me, and we got him his house hack in Logan Square. He's killing it over there. Yeah, exactly. Welcome back to Chicago. All right, so he gave us this one, and listeners, we're looking for Chicago facts. Please help me out. I'm a busy man. The more you can bring, the better. All right, so we talked about the Centennial Monument in Logan Square before, so I got another one of those for you. So the artist who's credited with that is actually more famous for a design contribution to this, and your options are the Lincoln Monument, the Liberty Bell Center in Philly, Disneyland, or the Gateway Arch in St. Louis. So that same thing you see in Logan Square, that artist has design contributions to one of those more famous artifacts. Which artifact is it?
All right. So when we do the Zoom shows, I usually write these down. Give me the options one more time.
It was the Lincoln Monument in D.C., the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, Disneyland, and the Liberty Bell Center in Philly.
I will say the Lincoln Memorial.
What are you going with?
Same.
All right. You guys are geniuses. I must have given away in my facial expressions.
Yes.
No, you didn't, but they're both like basically very similar. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of it too. And the arch was totally something different. I think that was.
I was running out of options,
like
man. It's hard. It's hard coming out with options.
All right. Man, this is awesome for our first. I know we'll come back and we'll probably critique it pretty hard because that's what we do. But this is awesome for our first recording for a Tuesday tip. So, Sarita, thank you for coming on. Tom, thank you as always. Listeners, our new website, 𝗖𝗵𝗶𝗵𝗏.com. Tons of resource on there. Download the stuff. Our goal is to give you as much value as we can so you become a successful investor. Sarita, thank you. Tom, thank you. Listeners, we'll see you Thursday.
Thanks all.
Thank you, guys.